some more traditional skills with my 3-minute skills. It's a traditional thing, a sewing skill, is making bias binding. Now you can buy it in craft shops and fabric shops, but it's a lot easier if you can make your own. So I'm going to make some and use it to make a couple of aprons here. So I've been to my local charity shop and picked up 2 shirts. These are cotton fabric, so they have, although they're a weave fabric, not a knit. The weave has no flexibility, horizontal or vertical, but it does on the bias, which is a diagonal, hence bias binding. So I've got 2 that are fairly nice for contrast. Couldn't find anything that looked too bad. First of all, you want to do up the buttons on your shirt. So we're going to start with the apron part first and then move on to the bias. The binding. Right. Big pair of scissors. Okay. So here I'm going to cut basically the front panel off. So I'm going to come this side of the seam, the front of the seam, right the way up and then across under the arm here, up to the neck. I want to take the cut around the back of the collar, about 1 inch below the edge of the collar here. Now I'm going to do that on both and set the front part aside. Now for the bias binding bit. So, if you lay your fabric out, you can see that I've got a nice pattern here where the horizontals and the verticals lie. So get yourself a ruler and a set square and line up the ruler with part of the pattern, so you've got a nice even line here, and then draw a line at 45 degrees to the vertical. Like that. Now using that line and the width of your ruler, again your bias can be any size you like, but this is about 1 inch and 2/3, so near enough 2 inches. So I'm going to just slightly switch out around about 1/3 of an inch, so I've got a 2 inch wide strip here. So you're going to draw 2 inch wide strips all the way along your shirt on the bias. Okay, so once you've drawn your lines, you want to get rid of this top corner and that sleeve, and then just trim off this sleeve here. I'm not worried about the yoke across the back, so I can trim that as I'm making the binding. So just trim that off. I'm not worried about the seams along the sides because, again, they're going to be trimmed off as we go. So when you're making binding, you try and get as many strips as possible from your piece of fabric. But on this case, this bottom corner, I'm going to have a strip that's only about 8 or 9 inches long, so there's no point in keeping that one. If you've got limited fabrics, then you might want to try keeping the smaller ones, but that's not necessary. So don't expect I'm going to need all of this anyway. So that goes onto your scrap pile for later use, and then you just cut all of the rest of these out. Okay, so once you've got all your strips cut, you want to start sewing them together. So you want to put your right sides together at right angles, like that, and then sew across the corner, like that. So it comes out very well. And just put a little reverse stitch at the beginning and end, just to make sure it stays where it's put, really. I'm only doing about a 3mm stitch here. It's not going to be under any serious tension the way it is, it's just being held together. And then just trim off the ends with about 1/2 inch leeway, and then you can see the strip continues. Okay, so from what was about 2 inches square of fabric, I've made 8 or 9 yards worth of binding, which will match what I want it to match. So that's why being able to make your own binding is very useful. So the stuff you'll get in shops will already have been pressed. They essentially take in each of the quarters on either side and bring them to the middle and press them like that, which means you have to put it open when you use it, which I find difficult, so I'm not going to press mine. So I'll find my midpoint is about there. I'll put that out of the way for the moment and pick up my other shirt front. So remember we took off the arms and the sides. On this one I actually left the seams on. I think I can take off the label. For the sake of neatness, I'm going to bind over the seams as well. So if I just show you how I do that before I move on to anything else. So taking a random end, because I've got plenty to work with here, you want to put good side down onto the fabric here along the seam and just pin that in. Okay, so I've stitched that on, good sides together. Now I'm just going to tidy up the bottom edge here and trim off to about 1/2 inch at the bottom and just tuck that in on itself so that can be tidied up later on. Pin on that. Right. And this is where having it pre-ironed comes in handy. You can, if you want to, just iron down kind of 1/4 of one side, but either way, this is how it works. Where you've got this top fabric coming in, you need to fold down until you're pretty much touching the edge of the fabric. How well it's going to come out. So you put it fairly tight, press down this fabric, and then fold up, and then fold over. Just pin that into place. I'll show you here. So you're folding up kind of the 1/4 here, and folding the whole thing over. Just making sure you're tucking in any loose threads that's sticking out. Okay, it's now raining, so I'm not sure how the sound's going to be, but I'll try my best. So I've done this side seam and made sure that all the raw edges are contained. Now I've started on the actual strap and the back covering here. So I've started with the middle of my bias at the middle of the collar here, and I've placed that good sides together all the way round. And then when I've got to the end, this corner here, I've doubled back the strap and then tucked it in here so that I can make it into the strap, as it were. And it's only about 5 foot long now, so it's not hugely long, but long enough to go round and back, which I prefer when I'm wearing an apron. So okay, so there's that done. With this you can open all the buttons if you want to, or just leave the top 1 or 2 open. So this way you're protected pretty much up to neck level when you're doing painting or other messy crafts. There's plenty of strap to come round and back. Oh, looks somewhat professional. That's it really. So I've just got to do the other one now. So that's your 3-minute skill, how to make bias binding and something to do with it. So get sewing. see you next week.